Good afternoon. My name is Austin Swanson, and I did my genetic disorder project on primary congenital hypothyroidism. So what is the thyroid gland? The thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped tissue that is located over the antero and more lateral portion of the trachea. We can see this. We can see the thyroid gland over here on the left side of the screen. And so the function of the thyroid is to produce T3 and T4 hormones. And these are the main thyroid hormones that will be discussed later and that are going to be affected by different gene mutations. But what these two hormones serve the purpose of is to produce, or rather to control, metabolism within the body, growth and development, and thermoregulation. So a little bit of background about primary congenital hypothyroidism is it's a genetic disorder characterized by a deficiency of the two thyroid hormones that we just talked about. And so this can be either an upregulation or downregulation and not a lack of these hormones. And the main word we're going to focus on too is the word congenital, which means present at birth or passed down. So the hormones that are mainly affected in this are the T3 and T4 hormones. And the deficiency of these is often caused by one of two different problems. The first problem we're going to look at is thyroid dysgenesis. Thyroid dysgenesis is when the thyroid gland is either missing or it's underdeveloped at the point of birth. The other option in the cause of hypothyroidism is thyroid dysmorphogenesis, which is a defect in the production of these hormones. And so it often occurs sporadically as far as mutations goes, but when we're talking about genetics and how it's passed down, it is passed down in an autosomal recessive inheritance pattern. So here we see a homozygous dominant, an individual that is not affected and not a carrier, crossed in a monohybrid cross with a homozygous recessive individual that does have the disorder. In this cross, we see that all of the offspring will be carriers and not affected. Another example is a simple pedigree. This is a autosomal recessive. This is general, but applies to our disorder. So we see individual 1 right here. Mary is affected with the disorder, has the disorder, marries individual 2. We do not readily know what individual 2 has. When we see the next generation, none of the offspring have it. However, when another individual 5, marries the offspring, individual 6, we see that one of their offspring has the disorder, which means that individual 6 must be a carrier, and this is how we know the genetic disorder is recessive. We can see this also played out over here when 2 homozygous recessive, they both are affected, all of their offspring are going to have it. More information. So it is seen that 1 in 2,000 to 4,000 individuals have the disorder, and it's primarily seen in women in a ratio of 2 to 1 compared to males. Although this disorder does not show with other physical defects as some other genetic disorders do, this primary congenital hypothyroidism has some symptoms, including hypersomnia, which is oversleeping and overfatigue. They will have decreased activity level, feeding difficulty in infants, jaundice, which is the yellowing of the skin in the infants. And if this disorder goes on and progresses without being treated, it can lead to intellectual disability and slow growth development. So the responsible genes are the PAX8, also known as the paired box 8 gene. Next, we have the thyroid stimulating hormone receptor gene found on chromosome 14, the DUOX, which is the dual oxidase activator 2 gene found on chromosome 15. And lastly, the other main one is the thyroid peroxidase gene on chromosome 2. So these all, like we talked about earlier, are going to impact the T3 and T4 hormone in one way or another. The PAX8, when mutated, leads to an ITD. This prevents the transport and collection of iodide within the thyroid cells, which ultimately binds to other elements and helps with the production of those hormones we talked about. TPO inhibits the production of the TPO enzyme. TSHR impacts the functioning of production of receptor proteins, so it doesn't receive as many signals to produce or to stop the production of the T3 and T4 thyroid hormone. Lastly, we have the DUOX2 impairs the production of hydrogen peroxide, which is a main proponent in the production of thyroid hormones. So available testing options. This form of disorder is often diagnosed with the simple blood sample, and this is mandated. Testing for this is mandated for all of the 50 states. In fact, it's often obtained within 2 to 4 days following the birth. And so different panels, which are a collection of tests, test for and are able to diagnose this disorder, including baby genes, targeted panel, TSHR sequence analysis, hypothyroidism, and resistance to thyroid hormone. And also, too, you can simply get a lab test, which will show you the T3, T4, and TSH levels individually. And so, companies that offer the testing, Baylor Genetics, Prevention Genetics, Archer, DX, Clinical Service, these are just a few of many third-party companies that do at-home testing, and you can order tests, put in a DNA sample of saliva, and send that off, and they'll give you your results. However, also, like I mentioned earlier, usually done in a hospital setting, can be done at primary care offices or other health clinics as well. So, what's the cost-benefit analysis here? We always want to know. It's pretty important. Obviously, it's mandated, but it's important to have early detection of this so that we know and can provide appropriate treatment for the individual. So, like I said, those at-home tests can be sent off. They cost between $60 and $120, relatively cheap. However, when you look at a hospital setting, your prices are going to be higher. Things are more expensive. Price ranges from $100 to $2,000, depending on the organization and the insurance that you carry. So, one of the biggest benefits is there's no controversy or debate regarding this testing. It's relatively safe, it's basically all but safe, and there is, or it is completely safe, and there's no studies, no evidence out there that this testing is not good or should not be completed, and it has good efficacy that is seen. So that is all for primary congenital hypothyroidism. Have a great rest of your year.